Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Talos of Tech live on Twitch. Oh, thank you, Very Complex. I hope people understand the title of this stream because it seems that people always misunderstand me whenever I make statements like this. That's exactly why I wanted to do a stream on it. Didn't really feel like doing a video on it because this is easier for me to just kind of rant and ramble on. The title of this stream, if the podcast and YouTube channel doesn't change it, is Why ProMotion is a Must on my next iPhone. But it seems like whenever I say that I want 120 hertz because I care about ProMotion, I love it on the iPad Pro, I appreciate it on the iPad Pro, and I've tried it on Android phones and loved it, and I've wanted it on the iPhone ever since they brought it to the iPads way back in 2017. It seems like a lot of people read those statements or read those tweets as everyone needs 120 hertz on their next iPhone. That's not what I'm saying at all. And I hope the record can be clear on that. I completely acknowledge most people don't notice the difference. I've tried to show 120 hertz to different people. I completely am aware. The average consumer does not know about it, does not care about it. It is a tech person thing. It is a pro community thing. It is a specific demographic of the market that does care about 120 hertz. And I acknowledge it is not everybody, but it is me. And I'm not an expert on a lot of things, but the one thing I am an expert on is my opinion. I know I'm not going to be wrong on that because I'm pretty in touch with what I want out of my phone. But I basically was thinking about it as I've been using the 12 mini, loving it, by the way. No complaints with the 12 mini. And thank you, Cosminator, for the 26 months of Twitch Prime and for the 20 bits. And, oh, that was a different person. Very Complex, thank you for the 20 bits. I know you don't want ProMotion, and the screen is fine as is. I'm not saying there's something wrong with the display. I'm simply saying if you want me to upgrade, if you want me to spend more money and switch my SIM over to a new iPhone, I don't want 60 hertz again. And it's not that 60 hertz is unbearable or that 120 hertz is super duper important and it's a must-have. It's a crucial, like everybody needs 120 hertz. No, it's just if you want me to upgrade, that's what you have to have. Because anything else you can possibly add, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to be that interested. I know because next year, 2021, is very much due for one of the most boring iPhone upgrades we've had in years. Okay, so iPhone 10 was, I think, agreed by many to be probably one of the last major year-over-year iPhone upgrades. All the changes between the iPhone 7 to the iPhone 10, huge, like between the wireless charging, the aspect ratio, the display, the biometrics, the removal of the home button, the notch, and wireless charging, and the updated camera. Like, there were so many changes brought that year. In fact, I would go as far as to say it's probably likely we will never get an iPhone upgrade that substantial again. I'm trying to think of things they could do in the future, and nothing I can possibly think of would be as major. Even if they did something which the tech community thinks is a big deal, but I don't think the average consumer would. Even if they completely removed the notch, and the notch was no longer there, they got rid of it, average consumer probably wouldn't notice or care that much. Maybe in a side-by-side. They'd be like, oh yeah, there's no notch on this one. Cool. But I can tell you from real-life experience that the average consumer does not notice or care about that type of thing. If it did matter, OnePlus would still be shipping pop-up cameras, but you notice that OnePlus removed the camera hole and the notch and went with a pop-up camera, and then they went back and started adding a punch hole camera. You know why? Because it's not that big a deal. People don't notice or care that much about it. And it's a spectrum, right? Because there's certain things that, I mean, a lot of you probably out there watching are saying that 120 hertz isn't a big deal to you and you can't really notice a difference. And here I am saying, even if the notch was smaller, even if the notch was gone, you wouldn't notice it and you can't really, average consumer doesn't see the difference. It's very subjective, right? That's my point. That's why I fully support everybody's opinions, and I'm not in favor, as much as an Apple sheep as I am, my goal on the internet is not for everybody to buy Apple products. My goal is for everybody to admit they have an opinion, admit they have a bias towards something or towards certain preferences, and you are welcome to buy into that. If you are interested in a certain Android phone or you're interested in a certain feature that no one else has, you are welcome and should not be shamed for buying into that preference or buying into that need, because we all have different preferences and different needs. From what I'm hearing, all of the changes to expect in next year's lineup, none of them are upgrade worthy to me. Okay, so let's find out that they add Touch ID back, either in the display or in the side button. I'd be like, okay, I'm fine with Face ID. Sure, there's sometimes I'm wearing a mask and Face ID doesn't work that well, but am I gonna spend money to upgrade? Probably not. No, don't think so. Um, okay, the camera gets a little bit better. They have a larger camera sensor that can catch more light, and it's even better at low light performance. Cool, but I don't need a new phone over that. And even battery life. I've reached the point now with, the 12 mini is by far the worst battery life out of the whole iPhone 12 lineup, and I am still, because I have chargers everywhere and now I'm getting into my groove of what my day-to-day work life is like, it's not an issue. Even on days where I use my iPhone pretty heavily, I don't kill it in a single day. And even if I did, I would not be far away from a charger, to the point that I have not been using the 12 mini in the past few weeks thinking like, oof, man, I need a better battery quick. This isn't going to work for me. Like, it's manageable and it's working fine. So even if the next 12 mini has like 2 to 3 hour longer battery life, I still wouldn't really see the need to upgrade. But something I've always appreciated on the iPad Pro, the reason I gravitate towards the iPad Pro across from all of my other devices, is because of that buttery smooth display, which some of you may not notice or care about, but I notice, and I care about that type of thing. So because of that, I would like it brought to more devices, and I would have much more symmetry and much more consistency between my iOS and iPadOS interactions if I had the same refresh rate on them both. So no, it's not the end of the world. I need it 100%. Like, I'm going to die if I don't have it. It's just, if you want me to switch away from this phone, which is great and fantastic, and we know that next year is not going to be a big design overhaul, and anytime you have a big design overhaul like we did in 2020, it's always inevitably going to be followed by an S year, a minor year, where they do incremental changes and nothing too major. That's just a fact. And iPhone 10 was major, but the reason 2018, the year after, didn't feel super minor was because they diversified the iPhone 10 lineup, right? So we had the 10R and we had the 10s Max. So those were the more interesting ones because we didn't have those form factors or those price points before. So what I'm trying to say is 2018 would have been a very different year if all they came out with was the 10s and that was it, right? Like they launched the iPhone 10 in 2017, and then 2018 comes along and they're just like, here's the 10s, and there's no 10R, there's no 10s Max. It's just iPhone 10 with a gold color now and slightly better selfie camera and maybe a little bit longer battery life. If that was it, I don't think I would have upgraded in 2018 if those were the only changes. Yeah, I don't know. I was dumber in 2018 and I was buying a lot of stuff I wouldn't buy today. But in hindsight, if that was the only changes brought to the lineup, wouldn't be that great. So in my opinion, that's what we're due for next year. 2021 is going to be like 2018 if all we got was the 10S and no other models. Thank you, Keopsis, for the 100 bits. He says, my bits, take them, you handsome devil. I'll take them, thank you. You don't have to lie. Some more bits from Fables. I'm hoping 2021 will have a larger battery, 120 hertz, and some kind of huge optical zoom leap like 10x or 30x digital zoom. Yeah, there's rumors brewing that Apple wants to develop periscope type lenses, the type that you've seen in the S20 for the iPhone, but they're not rumored to come out next year. They're actually rumored for 2022, which honestly, with having the 12 mini for the past few days now and not having a telephoto lens, maybe it's just because of the pandemic and I'm spending more time at home, but I have just lost my need for... I've just lost the need for a telephoto lens. Like, I've zoomed in with the standard lens on this quite a bit and been like, that's still pretty good. Like, the detail I get out of just the digital zoom is not that bad. Obviously, telephoto zoom would be better, but I'm really not missing it that much. Maybe this is just Drew's realization of, cameras on phones are pretty overkill for what most people are taking pictures and videos of. And I think I can I think I can comfortably get by without having a 100x space zoom. That's okay. Kiops has donated 20 bits at the beginning and said, "Give me that 120 hertz, boy." Should be standard by now. If not 120, then at least 90 hertz. Yeah, I know why Apple doesn't do 90 because it would be such a minor incremental change. But yeah, I'm with you. It's kind of surprising that they couldn't make that work this year. But it sounds like, in my opinion, it was outside of Apple's control. But we've been down that rabbit hole. Thank you for the bits, Red Hair. When is the next gaming stream? Also, Hydra have some money. I don't really know. The gaming channel's pretty much dead now, and I don't really have many plans for it. So sorry. I thought that channel would go somewhere when I was younger, and now that I've gotten older and I've tried news videos and I've tried game streams and I've tried edited gameplay and I've tried gaming news and that kind of. I've tried a bunch of stuff on that channel and nothing really worked. Whereas tech and EV have taken off a lot in a much shorter amount of time. So I don't know what to do. I don't know. I'm not that good at gaming anyway. I don't spend much time gaming in the first place. So sorry. I don't know. Fables, thank you for the bits. When do you think Apple will make a foldable, and will it be a phone or an iPad? I don't think it's a question of when. I would say it's a question of if. I think that if Apple discovers a way to make if Apple discovers a way to make a compelling foldable that they think would be worth bringing to market, I don't know. I just don't think that will happen in the first place. I'm sure there's prototypes. I don't doubt that. I know they have all kinds of patents, but if you guys have been watching Apple news for the past few years, you're well aware that anytime there's a patent for something, it really doesn't mean anything. If anything, if you see a patent by Apple, it almost encourages the idea that it won't see the light of day. Like, most of the patents I've seen from Apple over the past decade have not turned into products. So when I hear someone say, Apple has a patent on a foldable iPhone, I'm like, so it's probably not happening then, because I've seen patents for touchscreen iMacs since 2010 and patents for Touch ID under the display since 2016, and I've seen patents for foldable, rollable, like flexible displays for the Apple Watch that didn't come out. So most of the time you hear about a patent, it doesn't end up happening. You got to remember, Apple has all kinds of moonshot projects and all kinds of crazy ideas that they experiment with internally. Samsung decides to sell those experiments, but Apple is the type of company to want to iron out and fix and make sure that it's a seamless experience by the time they launch it. I do think that if Apple made a foldable, it would be the best one, because Apple's, I think, by far, just across the industry, the company that gets the software between phones and tablets the best. Between iPads and iPhones, they have really solid software, whereas everybody else doing foldables usually gets one or the other. Usually not the other, though. Normally it's just phones. It's like Samsung has really good phones, but I'm not a huge fan of their tablets and how they handle software on their tablets. So when they make a phone-tablet hybrid, it just ends up being kind of clunky. But anyway, to get back to my initial point, my point about wanting 120 hertz on my next iPhone is not so much saying that 60 hertz is terrible. It's just that anything else they can possibly add to the iPhone is not as important to me. Like, if we're gonna play the game of I don't notice it or average consumer doesn't care, then pretty much anything they add, we're at that point, right? What can they add that the average consumer would actually notice or appreciate? It's like better battery life. Okay, well, I'm good there. I've got chargers and I'm not in the workforce where I'm spending a lot of time away from home. So it's an important feature to me because the 12 mini is so solid, and it feels wasteful to get rid of it or replace it with something for something that minor, whether it be slightly better camera, slightly better, or no ports or something like that. Nothing else they have in store, I think would make that big a difference. Maybe just in-display Touch ID, that's about it. Yeah, that could be it, but it's been rumored for a long time, so I have heavy doubts about that. Like, there were rumors about Touch ID in the display before the iPhone X came out, and it never happened. So that's why I'm highly, highly skeptical to any report claiming that. I think showing how they did it on the iPad Air, that's probably how they do it. they'd bring back Touch ID for the side button, but not the display. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. Kiops has donated 100 bits and said 120 hertz is just better. Doesn't mean 60 sucks. I can't imagine anyone seriously saying they don't notice, especially if you put the two side by side. Believe me, Keopsis, I know it sounds crazy, but I've done side by side comparisons with people, and there are people that literally do not notice. Like, it's a thing. I've tried it with relatives and my wife. I've tried it with her a few times. It's just some people just don't notice that type of thing. And to some people it's important, and to others it's not. But yeah, you're probably right though, Cosminator. Touch ID coming back is probably the most noticeable thing a consumer. But I don't know if it's even a must-have upgrade. Like for me, it would not be a must-have. Like I gotta upgrade to get Touch ID back. Like I don't see a lot of people doing that. Maybe some people are just diehard Touch ID fans, but if they're diehard Touch ID fans, they're probably not using a phone with Face ID in the first place. Let's see. Don't you think the AirPods Max digital crown should be on the side? The movement pushing the finger up and down is much more natural and easier, just like Apple Watch. You know, I've seen a lot of people complaining about the digital crown location. I have a lot of issues with AirPods Max, but that's not one of them. Like, honestly, I was thinking about having it. I mean, it is on the side, technically. I mean, it's on the top part of the cup, which you can reach up with one finger and adjust. Most people aren't using the digital crown with two fingers. Most people just use one. So if you put it on the side, I guess you could roll it a bit more. But, yeah, I think it's fine where it is. I think it might seem a little bizarre. Yeah, I guess you kind of have a point there, I'll admit. If you had it on this side or the back side, you could roll the entire length of your finger to turn it, whereas when it's on the top, you kind of have to inch it with your finger a little bit at a time. I didn't realize it was so the digital crown was so large. I saw some photos of it because obviously the AirPods Max reviews went live today. And comparing the digital crown to the Apple Watch, it's quite a bit bigger. I didn't realize that. Let's see. My brother has a rule that he won't upgrade to a new iPhone unless it has Touch ID. He's currently using an iPhone 8. Oof. Okay, so he could get iPhone SE then. That would be somewhat of an upgrade. But yeah, if Touch ID does come back, it sounds like it is. I believe it's highly likely because Apple was already pulling their customers lately, asking them how they feel about Face ID. They're also asking them how they feel about the cable being included and what they do with the cable they ship with the iPhone. So now it sounds like they're thinking about removing the cable from the box. So we're gonna go down this environmental thing all over again. But yeah. I'd be fine with it personally. I don't use the cables my phone comes. I think it's still in the box right now. Yeah, just looking at it over there. The cable that came with my 12 mini is still in the box. So, and honestly, you can probably have the whole charge brick argument all over again if you're like, I need that cable. It's like, well, weren't you all just arguing about how shipping a USB-C cable is pointless because most people don't have USB-C bricks? It's like, yeah, I mean, there's a point there. There's some counterpoints to it, but it's a valid criticism. So what we've learned here is when people complain about something Apple includes, whether it's the 5-watt brick or the USB-C to Lightning cable, Apple's first impulse is going to be to just remove it if you don't like it. Hey, I don't like the 5-watt brick they're shipping with the iPhone. Okay, we'll get rid of it. Everyone's like, no, that's not what we meant. Why are they shipping a USB-C to Lightning cable? I don't have USB-C bricks. Okay, we'll get rid of it. Oh, wait, that's not what I meant. So now if you want a fast charger, you got to spend more money. There you go. I'd rather one big crown on the entire cover. Mike, you would like Surface headphones then. That's basically what they are. I know it sounds crazy coming from an Apple shape, but I prefer the Surface headphone method because it's a lot easier to adjust than a little crown. I prefer the digital crown to the touch pads because I've tried touch pads on headphones before and it's just confusing and it's easy to set them off. Digital crown, when you're not looking at the user interface, it's easier to have something that you can feel like a crown. But the Surface headphones have this giant dial on the side that you can rotate, and they have the noise cancellation on one side, which you can adjust, and then the volume on the other. which you can move with one finger, you can move with your hand. I find that much better. And they're way cheaper. And they're very comfortable, by the way. That's right. Apple Sheep's siding with the Surface headphones on this one. I don't have them anymore, but I used them for a month, I think, back when I reviewed them, and I regret it. I somewhat regretted returning them. I really enjoyed them. I liked them. At the time, I think they were more expensive. I think back then they were closer to $300, but now I think they're down to sub 200 in a few places. So you could get Surface headphones for even cheaper. They sound really good. The AirPods Max Digital Crown has haptic feedback? No, I don't think it has haptic feedback. It might give you a little ticking noise like AirPods Pro, where you press the Force Touch sensor and you can hear a little click, but it's not physically a click. Haptic feedback would be there's like a haptic engine that's actually vibrating. AirPods Max don't have that. Mike says they're $250 right now on their site. That's less than half the price. Wow. I would say that's better. Loving my Mac Mini despite its age. Going to be a GarageBand Pro soon enough. Hey, congratulations, Keopsis. Glad you got it. All right, Fables donated again. Did you hear about Samsung removing the charge brick in their next phones despite mocking Apple less than 3 months ago? I did, and I'm going to make a video on that later. It's on my list. There were other videos I wanted to make, but the Samsung removing the brick thing was on my list because the hilarious thing about that is they made a tweet bragging about how their phone comes with a charge brick, and they deleted it. And the FCC filings confirmed it, that the Galaxy S21 or whatever they end up calling it won't come with a brick. But, it'll be a huge debate again because, for one, called it. Totally called it. But for two, people are probably going to defend it because the S21 is likely going to start at a lower price than the S20. So people are going to be like, well, Samsung removed the brick, but at least the phones are cheaper. But I still think that argument's bogus because the S20 lineup started at $1,000, whereas the Apple lineup started at $700. And the phones got a lot better when they removed the charge brick, and the price didn't change that much, technically. The iPhone 12 was the only iPhone out of the lineup to get more expensive. 12 mini is just smaller than the 11. It's not a worse phone. I would much rather use the 12 mini than the 11. But the display is better, the CPU is better, the cameras are better. It's still an improvement nonetheless. It's just a smaller size. But and that is at the same price technically. $30 more expensive. But considering OLED displays used to be OLED iPhones used to be $1,000, and then in 1 year they jumped down to $730, I would say, yeah, they had to cut a few corners to get that to happen. Plus they added 5G. How many phones got 5G and didn't skyrocket up in price? But yeah, Samsung removing the brick. Hey, I'm not against it. I just think the marketing is hilarious. I expect everyone who criticized Apple to now point their criticisms towards Samsung. Just at least be consistent about it. I'll be consistent and say, yep, Apple made the right call to remove it. And I would say Samsung made the right call to remove the brick, but the marketing department did not make the right call by bragging about it. They should not have flexed really hard about how they still ship a brick with their phone. That was just going to age horribly, and we all knew it. Let's see. Keopsis says, Samsung and Google are notorious for mocking Apple for making a decision that they make shortly after. They need to shut the heck up. Yeah, I mean, it was so predictable, though, right? Like, everyone said that would happen, and it did. I think it's mainly the marketing department. Whatever department at the companies that decide, okay, we're going to cave and remove the headphone jack, or we're going to cave and remove the charge brick, they're not off here to follow with Apple's footsteps, because I think a lot of Apple's decisions for their product line make sense, and for other companies to follow through with it also makes sense. But it's just the marketing department that doesn't communicate with the, I don't know what you call it, accessory inclusion department, Whoever at Samsung is deciding what they leave out and what they get rid of, that department needs to communicate with marketing better and just be like, hey, don't make fun of Apple for that. We might do it ourselves. Same with the charge port. It's probably going to happen again. Apple will remove it next year or the year after, and then Samsung will make fun of them for it, and then Samsung will do it 1 to 2 years later. Cosminator says, everyone mad about the charge brick being removed. Would you have rather the phone get more expensive and keep the charge brick, or remove it and keep the phone at the same price? Ooh. Yeah, I bet most of them would say keep it out and keep the phone what it is today. Yeah, because that's the thing. What they want is probably not an option for Apple with their secured profit margins. What people want is for the charge brick. If the charge brick's going to be removed, I want the iPhone to be $20 cheaper. And if you're going to include the charge brick, then keep the price the same, obviously. But people don't realize how much higher the manufacturing costs are for the 12 and 12 mini compared to the 11. And they don't realize that the operating and manufacturing costs went up, so they had to cut corners in other areas. So in a way, that's what they did. If people were like, well, it should be an option at checkout that if you don't want the charge brick, you reduce the price by $20, which doesn't work because the price Apple charges for a charge brick is not how much it costs to include it in the box. That's a lot more complicated. So it's not like they'll just reduce the price by $20 if you choose to not have it. But what's more realistic is if you decide to keep it, it's just a perspective thing, right? If in that case, just think of it as every iPhone is $20 more than they list it as. And in that case, if you opt to not buy the brick, then you get a $20 discount. That's just a perspective thing. Wow, Kiopsis gifted a tier 1 sub. Thank you very much. That was nice of him. If Apple made a full screen iPhone and removed Face ID but gave 120 hertz and used Touch ID on the side and gave USB-C. What? Okay. No notch with 120 hertz with Touch ID on the side and USB-C. You didn't finish that thought. You just said, if Apple made a full screen. Are you asking if I would get that? Probably. I love Face ID a lot, but I would probably sacrifice it for 120 hertz. Most probably don't agree with that. Expos1, thank you for the 200 bits. He said, in Canada, the Airpods Max are $780. Rather get an iPad. My goodness. That's a very high price. Very difficult to justify that, I imagine. Especially when in none of the marketing material for AirPods Max do they ever show it going with a Mac. So it's almost impossible to compare it to, other $700 headphones on the market. But you do get a lot of free healthcare, so that's what a lot of that price is. Air 4 and AirPods Max are the same price in Canada. Oof! My goodness. I would say that's too expensive for the Air 4, to be honest with you. Let's see. Enjoy the Xmas gift from the Android Windows user. Appreciate it. Do you also have a habit on unscrewing the pencil tip? I don't know if I'd call it a habit sometimes. I usually just take it off to clean it because sometimes there's little bits of dust and stuff that gets caught in there. So I unscrew it sometimes. But no, I wouldn't say it's a habit. I used to stream myself playing games on the Tailosive Gaming Twitch account, but I haven't done that in a long time just because I don't have the time for it. But 100 bits from Kiopsis. Thank you very much. He asks, during editing, do you use Apple headphones or you use wired studio-type headphones? Neither. I use the included speakers on my iMac Pro, which honestly sound pretty good for all-in-one speakers. Most dedicated iMac speakers aren't very good, but the iMac Pro has an extra set of subwoofers that the 27-inch iMac doesn't have, so I like the sound quality of it. But if I am using headphones, I'll use AirPods Pro. I've used wired studio headphones in the past, and I'm not a fan of over-ears in general. So keep that in mind when I review AirPods Max, is that there's probably not a pair of over-ear headphones I would enjoy using. But it's the classic example for everybody saying, Drew would defend anything Apple does. No. lists everything Drew doesn't defend. Well, other than those things, other than all the things he doesn't defend, he defends everything Apple does. Yeah, that's true. It's like all cars are painted red except for the cars that aren't. That's basically what that criticism is. There's a lot of things Apple does I don't like, and AirPods Max is one of them. 12 mini in Canada is almost $1,000. Okay, fair enough. I'd say it's worth it. There's not a lot of other phones that small. If you're going for one-handed, comfortable factor, there's not a lot of other premium phones in the market this tiny, which I enjoy. AirPods Max will never come for free buying a Mac for college. Well, no, I doubt it. They might give you a discount. AirPods Pro didn't come for free when buying a Mac for college. Basically, what they did with the last Mac or back to school, when you buy a Mac deal bundle or whatever they call it, was you got free AirPods, but it was only the base, like cheapest possible AirPods. So if you wanted the AirPods with the wireless charging case, it was $40. And if you wanted AirPods Pro, it was $90. So basically you pay the difference after $160. Basically, during those college deals, they give you a $160 credit towards AirPods. So if you buy the cheapest ones, they're free. But if you want, well, what would the math be on that? If you wanted AirPods Max, they're just going to reduce the price $160. So that would make it $390. So the bundle basically makes AirPods Max a somewhat decent price. I would say $390 is somewhat worth it. So AirPods Max I might recommend if you are buying a Mac with them. Maybe that's what it'll be, but even then, there's not a whole lot to have to offer over what competitors are pitching right now. It's just so different from the AirPods market because I defended AirPods and thought they were justified at the price when they came out because there weren't a lot of wireless headphones like them at the time. No pair of headphones had the W1 chip style pairing method, and most Bluetooth headphones had a wire connecting the two on the back. Whereas AirPods was kind of one of the rare, it wasn't the first, but it was pretty rare to see a pair of headphones that didn't have a wire between the two and were that small, and also had pretty decent microphone quality and fit in a charge case this tiny that was super duper pocketable, and they magnetically fit in there and everything. So it was not as mature a market. Basically, when the AirPods came in, Bluetooth headphones were not as mature as the wireless over-ear headphone market. So AirPods Max entering the field is so drastically different from AirPods entering the field. But Kiops has donated a quarter and said, Drew defends Apple 100%, 60% of the time. I defend them 100% of the time, 60% of the time. Yeah. That's how half the people in my family got AirPods Pro buying college tech. So they still had to pay $90 for them, I guess. Imagine getting a discounted deal on AirPods and still dropping $400 on them. Isn't that kind of sad? I guess if you're like gonna buy a Mac anyway and there's no debate, then sure. That might be your early spoiler review of AirPods Max when I get them. I'm just gonna be like, if you're buying a Mac for college and you can get them for under $400, sure. Then I'll recommend them. But if you're not getting them for the education bundle, probably not. Watching the product reviews of them this morning, they definitely sound like price is the main issue. But also, excuse me, a little teenage Drew cracked just now. Also, something I'm already starting to realize I don't like about AirPods Max with my current ecosystem workflow is that I like to use things inductively as much as possible. So I have pretty much exclusively charged the 12 mini with MagSafe. I even got rid of almost all of my standard wireless chargers because I wasn't using them. So I have the MagSafe puck here on my desk if I need to charge. This is normally what's charging my AirPods. And if I need to charge my 12 mini, I can just, dock it real easily. And if I'm going to bed, I'm going to use MagSafe Duo, which has been great. Even my wife thought it was pretty cool. She usually is not interested in new Apple products and that kind of thing. But I brought the MagSafe Duo to her, and I was like, look, there's the watch, there's the phone, and I can fold it up. And she was like, whoa, that's kind of cool. So I was like, whoa, it gets stamp of Louise approval. She was cool with it. So even that I thought was pretty neat. So I'm doing everything with MagSafe. Obviously, the Apple Watch is portless, so I drop it on MagSafe Duo at the end of the day. So I charge my watch without having to touch a cable. I charge the 12 mini without having to touch a cable. AirPods Max, though, there's no inductive method of charging. You have to use Lightning, and you have to plug it in, which means that I would have to get another cable somewhere to have readily accessible to charge it, which I'm not a big fan of, because I'm trying to get everything over to, it's either USB-C or it's MagSafe. You know, MagSafe Duo was not helping with that because it's still Lightning. But yeah, I basically have one USB-C charger for my iPad Pro, and then the iMac obviously is plugged into the wall, and there's no battery. And my watch charges inductively, phone charges inductively. Now the AirPods Max is going to throw a wrench in my whole ecosystem, because I'm going to have to be somewhat ready to plug in a Lightning cable at some point. Normally, I don't have Lightning that accessible. Pretty much the only time I have to pull out a Lightning cable is when I need to charge my Magic Mouse or my Magic Keyboard, which is once every 6 weeks. So when it does happen, I'm just like, oh yeah, and then I just plug a Lightning cable into either an outlet or the iMac Pro and just charge it overnight, and then I unplug it and put it away. So now with AirPods Max, I have to do it. It's not going to be once every 6 weeks, I can tell you that. So yeah, I think that's a huge deterrent for me, is the fact that, you know, how hard would it have been to get MagSafe on AirPods Max, right? Just have the little cup on the side thing. There at least should be some way for you to dock it and charge it with some type of... there'll probably be third-party accessories that let you set the AirPods Max on a dock, but when you're spending $550, you would expect you could get something like that included. But yeah. 50 Bits from Keopsis says, do you play any instruments? I used to. Pretty much haven't played anything recently, but when I was in high school, I played piano and trombone and a little bit of baritone, but I wasn't very good at it. But I was in jazz band for a little while. So I haven't played instruments in years, though. Feel bad about it, though. I feel like I should have kept that going. I should have kept... I took piano lessons for 5 years, and I played trombone for 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade. So 4 years, I think. I was the second chair. I wasn't first chair, but I was basically second best throughout middle school and high school. So I was like almost the best trombone player in the section, but there was always one person better than me. I never got to first, I think. What mouse do you use with your iMac? Oh, Magic Mouse. And I have my reasons. I know the charging method is stupid, but honestly, the battery life is so good, it's not that big a deal. I will put up with any stupid charging method if it's once every 6 weeks, because that's how long the Magic Mouse battery lasts for me. And I use it every day. I use it for work, and I've tried other mice in the past. I've tried the MX Masters and all that, and I've tried different... A lot of people complain that the Magic Mouse isn't ergonomic. I think it's just an acquired taste. Some people are more comfortable and they grow up with larger mice, so they're used to that, and that's what their hands used to. But if you're like me, I've been using the Magic Mouse pretty much as long as it's been available. When the first Magic Mouse, not the second one that you can recharge, but the first one with AA batteries, when that first came out, I bought it because I thought it was so cool that there was no little trackball and it was all just a touchpad. And I didn't even have that new of a Mac at the time. I think I had an old like 2007 iMac it was like 17-inch display. It was a really tiny iMac, but it had Bluetooth, I think. So I got the Magic Mouse with it, and I fell in love with it, and I got so comfortable with it to now I can't edit as quickly with any other mouse. I've tried other mice, and I can't edit as fast. I think it's mainly because of the side scrolling. I've seen other mice that have the little wheel for the thumb, but I can move faster and more precisely with the side-to-side swiping of the Magic Mouse than I can with the tiny little wheel for your thumb. And the fact that you're actually swiping side to side with Final Cut is really helpful. Being able to scroll sideways is like most of what my video editing is. And the fact that I can scroll and move the mouse simultaneously is why I prefer it over a Magic Trackpad. Because a Magic Trackpad, you can't do both. You have to either move the mouse or scroll. It's not simultaneously, whereas Magic Mouse, I can scroll and move and click all at the same time. So that's why I'm glad it exists. I hope Apple doesn't get rid of it. But yeah, it's the same mouse that came with my iMac Pro. It's 3 years old now, and it served me well. It's gotten very dirty. Thankfully, you can't see much of the detail in it, but the bottom of it is pretty, like, there's been a lot of paint chipping over the years just because my hands are sweaty and my hand is using it every day, and it's picked up a lot of crumbs and dust, and I've tried to clean it, but it just gets dirty again. So anyway, I don't think next year's iPhone will have micro LED. We would probably know from supply chains by now, and they haven't said that. So it's most likely going to be OLED, and then for the pros, it'll be LTPO OLED panels that can dynamically adjust the refresh rate to go up to 120 and go down to like 1 if they need to save power. Have you ever tried out the virtual piano on GarageBand? Well, the one you have to press the letters on the keyboard for? Yeah, but that's totally different. A lot of piano playing is muscle memory. So if you try to do it with physical keys on a keyboard, it's not. I mean, this type of keyboard, not an actual piano keyboard. That would be different. But no, I couldn't get used to that. I haven't played piano in years, so I would basically, if I tried to do it again now, it would be like starting from scratch. It's like a laptop trackpad on top of a mouse. Yes, exactly, Alpha. That's pretty much exactly what it is. It's a trackpad and a mouse put together, which is why I like it. I don't find it unergonomic. Some people have criticized it for that. They're like, it's not comfortable. I think it's super comfortable, but I guess that's what personal preference is for. If the next iPhone doesn't have 120 hertz, Drew will probably still find reasons to upgrade to it. No, I know you'd like to think that, but I'm pretty set on this one, Alien Dude 51. I'm here to tell you, the 12 mini is solid. I'm loving it. The camera is amazing. The display is fantastic, and the battery is still getting me through the day, even though it's not great. I'm near chargers, and I'm not going out that much anymore. So, you can even charge your phone in the car these days anyway. So, it's not that complicated to work with this battery life. And I love Face ID, and it's gotten to the point, the 12 Pro Max is gone. I shipped it off. It's returned. Apple has it now. It's out of my hands. And I've gotten so used to this that I'm serious when I say that the only thing that could get me to leave the 12 mini is 120 hertz. If it's not that, it's just better camera, A15 chip, or some weird. Honestly, Touch ID wouldn't do it for me. But I'm trying to think of things they can add next year, and it really sounds boring. It's just going to be a really minor year if it's just like Touch ID is back. You're welcome. Oh, it's not Alien. Sorry. I read it that as Alien. The text looks all weird on my screen because there's so many chats coming in. Sorry. Alan Dude. I'm surprised you stayed with the mini because you always said that you like the biggest screens possible. I normally do, but the 12 Pro Max was starting to push it a little bit. Like, I typically do like the biggest display possible, but holding and using the 12 Pro Max was getting to the point where, for one, the squared off edges are not more comfortable than the rounded off design, in my opinion. I've seen some people disagree, but going from the 11 Pro Max to the 12 Pro Max, it felt noticeably less comfortable because the squared off back cuts into your hand a bit more. And the 12 Pro Max is really heavy. It's the heaviest iPhone they've ever made. And I already thought the 11 Pro Max was pretty heavy. So the fact that, I know it's only a 0.2 inch size increase, but the fact that it's squared off and you have every micron of that steel going right to the edge instead of being rounded off, whereas just a point is going to the edge, that's what made the 12 Pro Max feel like such a behemoth, so huge. And it's not that I don't like small phones. It's just that I've normally had the mentality of just like go big or go home. And I still like big phones to a certain extent, but I just decided that, $1,100 and I'm still getting 60 hertz. I'd rather not reward Apple for that, because the 12 Pro Max, I felt like it kept falling short of what I was hoping for. Whenever I was using it, I was just like, man, I was really hoping that camera sensor would make a bigger difference. Or, man, I was hoping that telephoto lens would be more noticeably better. And, man, I was hoping that display would be 120 hertz. So it kept falling short of what I would expect when spending $1,100, whereas the 12 mini exceeded my expectations for a phone of this price point, like around $800 when you get the 128 gig option, and still really high quality, still real premium. And because it's so light, lightest iPhone they've made in a long time, the squared off design isn't as uncomfortable, because it's not like it's cutting into your hand, but there's not a lot of weight behind it. So it feels like you're holding nothing to a certain extent compared to holding something like the 12 Pro Max. And I want to reward Apple for that. I appreciate Apple being the one company that's actually going towards how do we make smaller phones. And I have admitted on the vlogging channel and on the tech channel that I've dealt with smartphone addiction, where I can't put my phone down and I need to spend less time on my phone, and the 12 mini is helping me manage that. It's still a great camera, so when I want to take awesome photos and take awesome video, I can, and it's still a great display. So when I want to watch videos on it and I want to use it outdoors in the daylight, it still gets plenty bright. It's still very rich and vibrant. It's not like a compromised display like the 11 or 10R was. So all of that at this price point, that's awesome. I want to reward them for that. Kyopsis donated 50 bits, says, I really thought my wife would prefer the mini, but when she was trying out the different models, she preferred the bigger models. Yeah, it sounds like that's most people. People just kind of moved on from the smaller iPhone trend. Derek asks, do you use your 12 mini a lot still, or do you use it more like a tool communications device? After work, I use it quite a bit, actually. Yeah, I've found myself in a lot of situations where my wife is on her phone doing something, or sometimes after work, because we start work pretty early, my wife wants to take a nap. So I don't have any work apps on my phone, in case some of you are new and didn't know that. There's no Twitter, there's no Creator Studio, there's no Discord, there's none of that. So I'm pretty disconnected from work on the iPhone, but there's still times where, I'm using it, but I'm not avoiding anybody. It's just like there are times when it's okay to use it and times when it's not. Obviously, moderation is key to everything. And yeah, there's been a lot of circumstances where my wife is doing something, so it's okay if I'm doing something, and I'm not in a position where I need to be like in the moment. It's like, okay, I'm sitting down on the couch in the living room and not much is going on. So yeah, it's okay. The important thing to me was like not constantly checking Twitter and interacting in Discord, because those are like rabbit holes that are easy to fall into, and constantly interacting with you guys, because you guys are addicting to talk to, and just I won't stop if it's on the phone. So that's why I keep it off. If you weren't a YouTuber, would you have upgraded after the iPhone 10? It's impossible to know, because if I'm not a YouTuber, I don't know if I'd get the iPhone 10. And also at the same time, I don't know what I'm doing in non-YouTuber land. If I'm working, if I ended up going to the lineman's college and made pretty good money, I'm still an Apple fan. I was a big fan of iPhones and Apple products before I had a tech channel. Way before I had a tech channel, I was still into Apple products. So if I had the resources and I had the money for it, it's possible I would still be upgrading every year, even if I wasn't a YouTuber. But if I did not become a lineman, and I don't know, I just kept working at the Mandarin Ranch, and YouTube didn't work out to be a full-time thing, and my money was more scarce and I didn't have a lot of savings, then yeah, I probably would have held on to lots of iPhones for as long as possible. I don't even know if I would have bought the iPhone 10 if money was tight. That was an expensive phone for the time it came out in. So if you want my advice, I know what you're trying to ask. What you're trying to ask is, if you have an iPhone 10, should you get the 12 mini or whatever? Or should you upgraded, or should I get a 12 or a 10s or something like that? My advice, if you're coming from an iPhone that doesn't have a notch, then the 12 is a worthy upgrade, I would say. If you've got the money for it, obviously, if you're in a situation where you don't have a lot of savings and you don't have a lot of spare cash, don't buy a new iPhone. But if you feel like you need an upgrade because your old iPhone's not cutting it, the 12 is a good time and a very substantial upgrade if you're coming from a phone without a notch. If your phone already has a notch, I would say that it's a bit more of a luxury to upgrade. I mean, there could be certain people in situations where just the battery on the iPhone 10 is not cutting it. Um, if you're on the SE2, you shouldn't be in the market for a new iPhone. You just got that. You don't need two new iPhones within a year. But if your phone does have a notch, then I would say it's a little bit of a stretch, and I would flat out say if any of you have an 11 or an 11 Pro, I would just flat out say don't upgrade. This year-over-year upgrade's not going to be super substantial. If anybody's on the 11, I wouldn't tell them to upgrade. If you're on the 10S or 10R, yeah, you'll notice a few things that you'll appreciate, but worth is all subjective, right? That's why there's no clear answer here. If you just want, if you were just a friend of mine asking me in my personal life, I would just be like, if your phone has a notch, don't feel like you need to upgrade to the 12. If your phone doesn't have a notch and you still got the home button, yeah, sure. I think it's about time. I have reached 3 years with my Note 8E. I'm doing your Note 8, gotcha. Doing another year. There you go. Most people should hang on to their iPhones longer. Should I switch to the Mini from a 12 Max? Also want to use my phone less, but worried about battery for days I actually need it. I would just say that it depends on how many days there are in the year. If it's like 10 days in the year where you're actually going to utilize that battery, then just, return the Max, save yourself some money. I mean, you can buy a really nice battery bank in the $300 department. If you like the Pro Max, keep the Pro Max, obviously. But if you're feeling like it's too big or it's a little bit overbearing, then I would highly recommend considering if you can save yourself some money and still be comfortable with it, then why not? Save yourself some money. Drew hates being the average guy, doesn't he? 12 Mini or 12 Pro? Not that I wouldn't recommend someone get the 12. That's a decent option for most people. I would say probably most people should get the 12. It's like that. It's like that right middle ground between like good battery life, good size, but not too expensive. Still good quality features. Yeah, but honestly, like the reason I would push so many people towards the 12 Mini is like if you can get comfortable with it, because that's the thing, right? Most average consumers don't notice or care that much about all these tech specs. The fact that there's those of us in the chat right now that know the difference between 12, 12 Pro, 12 Pro Max, 12 Mini, you know all the differences. That's more of a tech community thing. A lot of people are probably just going to look at these phones as sizes, and that's about it. So in that case, if you can get by with the 12 Mini, all the better to you. Save yourself some money, and you can get by with a much cheaper iPhone than the rest of the lineup, which if you can't get by with the 12 Mini, okay, you got to spend some extra money. But the less you can get by with, the better is the way I look at it. If you can get by with less, try to. Your decision video was the funniest video I've seen. Great job. Thank you, Expos. Glad you liked it. I want to do more of those. It's just I think there's a way to overdo it. Today's video is pretty funny. I think I uploaded it, but it's not posted yet. Oh yeah, I'll post it after this live stream. It's about portless iPhones and that kind of thing. But yeah, I want to make the content funny as much as possible, but I think it would be too. It would probably get old and cringy really fast if I just did the Drew talking to himself over and over thing. If you come to expect it, and there's only so many things I can be split on down the middle, it would get old. So it's all about balance, kind of like the Apple Sheep Overdrive thing. If I did Apple Sheep Overdrive once a week, it would start to get old, and people are like, oh man, he's doing the same bit. So I want to come up with new bits and keep things fresh and funny and informative, but at the same time not just rehash the same joke over and over again. There's only so many ways I can say chonk, slowfy button, slowfy button, slowfy button, slowfy button. Memes can get old and lose their spice to them if you overdo them. Yusuf says the multiple Drew thing is something you shouldn't do very often, like once every 3 months or so. Yeah, I want people to, when they see Drew start talking to himself, I want people to be like, oh, he's doing it. You know, I don't want people to be like, oh, he's doing it. You know, like, oh, here we go again. You know, he can't stop doing that. My stepmom is set on having telephoto. How would you convince them to get the 12? I would tell her to get the 11 Pro. What honestly, genuinely, what is your logic if you need to have the telephoto? Why do you have to get the 12 Pro over the 11 Pro? What does the 12 Pro have that the 11 Pro doesn't that you care that much about? That's the question you should be asking. Not do I need telephoto or not? Does the 12 Pro justify the extra price it costs over the 11 Pro? Which, by the way, 11 Pro way more comfortable to hold, better battery life. 5G is stupid. Don't list that. 5G is a bad reason. She's interested in LiDAR for room design. She's coming from a 10S. I don't think she needs to upgrade. Use that money on an iPad Pro with LiDAR then. I'm sorry, just the differences from a 10S to a 12 Pro are so minor. And this is why the 11 Pro is the most superior iPhone. Is she interested in LiDAR, or is she absolutely sure she would 100% utilize LiDAR for her room design? Because a lot of what LiDAR does, you can do with a normal camera. I think that's a huge misconception. It's a huge misconception people have. As someone who has used LiDAR on multiple devices, it's not that good, in my opinion. Like, people act like the AR demo stuff when you can place furniture and add things to walls and stuff. They act like you need LiDAR for that. You really don't. The only difference is LiDAR is just like a little bit better at motion tracking, and when you walk in front of the object, LiDAR will mask out your hand or your body a little bit more accurately, but it's still not very accurate. Like, the camera will try to do it. The question you have to ask yourself in your stepmom's case is what are you willing to pay for that difference in augmented reality room design? You can still do the room design stuff with a camera, but will the LiDAR sensor make a night and day difference versus that room design stuff? In my opinion, no, because I've tried LiDAR before. I've done the motion tracking stuff, and it's like, it's a bit better, but I wouldn't say $100 or upgrade worthy better. It's not super duper precise. The Measure app is consistently wrong. The Measure app, they put in some new gimmicky feature for the Measure app every week, basically. It's like, now you can point the Measure app at a person and it'll tell you how tall they are. 9 times out of 10, it's wrong. I'm just saying that from, meeting up with people on occasion or going out and like with masks and stuff, we were being careful, but I've tried it with other people in the family or friends, and it's always several inches off. And when measuring like tiles or trying to use the Measure app for like rulers and that kind of thing, it's always several inches off. So anything you're actually utilizing it for work is not super accurate. It's a party trick at best, in my opinion. Should I have her wait for the iPhone 14 so the LiDAR can be more accurate? Maybe. I would just say don't tell her to get the 12 Pro just because it has LiDAR. That's a really bad reason to upgrade, in my opinion. I would highly encourage you to be like, no, it's not going to be a noticeable difference. Like, maybe 3D mapping rooms, but I don't think that helps much with room design. I've used a few of those 3D mapping apps when I had the 12 Pro and the 12 Pro Max. It's not super accurate. It's very, very rough scans of rooms, and the detail is not super sharp. So unless you're not on the fence because you know exactly what LiDAR does and you know for sure you will 100% utilize LiDAR for its intended purpose, I would say don't. If you're on the fence and you're just hearing, well, maybe LiDAR is going to help me with room design. Like, if you're not sure, it's probably not going to. The only people it's going to help are the people that are 100% certain it's going to help. Turns out Drew is 4'10" and not 5'7". I'm guessing your height. I don't know what it actually is. You think I'm 5'7"? I wonder why you think that. I'm actually. I wonder if. Yeah, there should be a picture of it actually. Let me pull up Google Photos on the iPad, and you can see how accurate the LiDAR sensor is. You can choose to believe my height here. Let's see. That was back in early November, right? With the Measure app. Let me scroll back a bit here. Yeah. Okay, here it is. It's a picture of me next to some chocolate-covered strawberries. And as you can see... Ooh, Surf Jesus was spot on. Drew seems like he's 6'1". It's there. The proof. The LiDAR sensor never lies. See how that lined perfectly? Yeah, you're probably right that the hair makes up for about an inch worth of space. Drew's height is mostly made up with hair. But the hair is a part of me, right? That can technically add to my height. It just means that I get a little bit shorter when I get a haircut. That's all. Definitely with the Pro Max version of him. Let's see. No, I think that was the only one I took. I'm trying to find a different one. I think I took a picture of Louise with the Measure app too. Aw. No, I'm just looking at cute pictures now. Okay, whatever. The LiDAR sensor has spoken. I would say it's a little off. I was thinking 5'7" or 5'9" just because that's the average height, and Drew seems like he's around the average guy in terms of size. How dare you, Yusuf, assume I'm average height? I am slightly above average, but not freakishly tall. Like Nick Answeeney, he is freakishly tall. He's in the like top 10% bracket of height. And yes, having met up with Mike, I can confirm we are about the same height, pretty close. Mike might be slightly taller, but we look similar in height because of my hair. Mike's hair sits a bit more flat, just a little bit. Anyway, did you guys see this report earlier about Apple refreshing the budget iPad again? What the heck is that about? We just got the iPad 8 in September, and now they want to launch the iPad 9 in spring? Who's reporting this now? Like, which leaker is this? Oh, CN Beta, according to Apple Track, who is 61% accurate. Yeah, that sounds about right. Not super accurate with these things. Ooh, yeah, they've made a lot of inaccurate claims, actually. But they said it will have A13 chip, 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of storage default, and it'll be thinner than the current budget iPad. So what it basically sounds like is a rebranded iPad Air 3 with a 10.5-inch display. Yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't know why they would release that in the spring, but it's a rumor going around, and I don't know. Like, if it's non-laminated, I guess it makes sense, but I could honestly see that butchering a lot of iPad sales. If you're able to get for under $400 an iPad with a 10.5-inch laminated display, 64 gigs of storage, 4 gigs of RAM, wouldn't be that bad, honestly. How different could it differ from the already deal-breaking iPad 8? Well, it would have an extra gig of RAM, it would come with twice the storage, and it would have the A13 chip instead of the A12. They didn't mention anything about a laminated display, but I'm guessing it would be because all of the budget iPads that don't have a laminated display have all been the same thickness. And what they're describing sounds exactly like the iPad Air 3, just with some updated internals. And I don't know if you could do a non-laminated display with the iPad Air 3 design. I don't know if that's possible. Maybe it's possible. I'm no expert in manufacturing or anything like that, but my guess is that, you know, the iPad Air 2 had a laminated display and it was a certain thinness, but then when the budget iPad came out, it was thicker with a non-laminated. So something tells me, does the iPad 8 already have 4 gigs of RAM? I'm not sure, actually. I can't tell. It's either 3 or 4. I don't remember, honestly, because that iPad was so boring. But yeah, A13 chip versus A12 wouldn't be a huge difference. But, it is kind of interesting that they're shipping. A12 is getting kind of old if we're going to be releasing an A15 chip next year. So keep in mind, like, we're almost to 2021, guys. Like, we're a few weeks away from 2021. So if Apple is still selling for the bulk of 2021 an iPad with an A12 chip, how many years of updates are those people buying those iPads really going to get? They're probably going to get the short end of the stick when it comes to iPad OS upgrades if they're still rocking the A12. So A13 might get an extra year of support. Maybe that's why they want to get it out there soon. So, yeah, I don't know. That it's definitely going to be the most popular iPad, that's for sure. I have been watching The Mandalorian. Yes, I'll watch it tomorrow morning as well. It's a great show. Pretty good show. There's some episodes better than other, but when it comes to Star Wars, it's probably the best thing Disney has done with it so far. Can someone explain the logic of the iPad mini having superior internals to the standard iPad? The logic... Well, it's more expensive than the standard iPad. But it's possible that through economies of scale or something like that, they're able to get the iPad 8 to a certain price point by not having to retool a bunch of the old factory lines, whereas the iPad mini, it becomes progressively harder. When you're shaving off money from a product line, okay, let's shave $50 off. Let's get it $50 cheaper, $50 cheaper. Every $50 is harder than the last. So, Apple reducing $50 off the iPhone 11, the 10R was $750 and the 11 was $700. That is not as hard as Apple shaving off the price of the iPhone 8, which was $450, to $400 with the SE. Like that, the closer you lower those prices, the more difficult it gets. So it's possible that they could dumb down the specs of the iPad mini and maybe give it a non-laminated display and make it cheaper, but it wouldn't be much cheaper. So it's likely that even if they matched with the A12 chip and they had the same silicon and they both had Apple Pencil support and all that, if they dumbed down the iPad mini, they could still only get it down to like $330. And then you would just have two iPads of the same price in two different sizes. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. I mean, maybe Apple shouldn't be against that, but I could just see why Apple would say we would rather just have the iPad mini be $400 with a good display than $330 with a bad display. So that's why they keep it where it is, and that's why they give it, because that's really the only difference, right? They both have A12 chips. It's just one's laminated and one isn't. And I don't know, maybe manufacturing-wise, it's way harder to do a non-laminated display on an iPad that size, whereas with a bigger iPad, it's cheaper or something. I'm not sure. Sorry, I don't watch the Clone Wars. I never got into that. What if the iPad mini was just the standard iPad but small and $50 to $150 cheaper? That would be nice, but yeah, like I said earlier, I think that shaving off each dollar when you get that cheap is progressively more difficult. So they probably couldn't make the iPad mini non-laminated for $100 cheaper. I bet if they gave the iPad mini a non-laminated display, it would probably still cost like $300, in which case the price is so close that it's not even worth doing. I would rather have more iPads with laminated displays. I would rather us start getting rid of the non-laminated iPads instead of adding more. Thank you. But that's a good question, Surf Jesus. It is kind of weird that they do that. Don't you think the iPad lineup is way complicated? Like they need to keep it simpler? Yeah, Joseph, I've done multiple videos on that. I've done, I think, 3 or 4 videos on how the iPad lineup is too complicated. Pretty much whenever a new iPad comes out, I do another video on iPad lineup is too distorted. They got to work on simplifying this and making it a little bit easier. So, yeah, agreed. But it is easier to repair non-laminated display iPads. Oh, right. Because Apple cares about repairability, right? Don't think so. laminate the iPad with an iPad. What do you think the best value iPhone was on its launch day? If we're just going pure value, probably like the SE. I mean, I guess it depends on what you care about in a phone. It depends on the person. I'm torn between probably the iPhone 11 or the SE. I feel like every other iPhone, people are like, yeah, price is kind of high. Prices, it's a little bit up there. But the iPhone 11 shocked everyone. I don't recall anyone before the iPhone 11 came out saying that it would be cheaper. Everyone was hoping it would stay at $750, but there was a few people worried that the price would go up. And the fact that it didn't go up was pretty surprising to people. So $699 for the iPhone 11 on launch day. That was, I would say that was pretty amazing value for a lot of people. I feel like the iPad lineup is very straightforward. It's just the iPad mini that's ruining everything. I don't think it's the mini. I think it's the budget iPad and the Air. There's such a weird relationship between those two. They're like affordable but not too affordable, and then this one's affordable but too crappy. Like I think those two. The fact that there's a 10.9-inch display and a 10.2-inch display and an 11-inch display. There's like too much variety and too small of a difference, like having a 10.2-inch iPad, a 10.9-inch iPad, and an 11-inch iPad is just kind of feels very redundant. Like, why can't we just have all, I don't know. The budget iPad is what you give to your kids, I guess. Maybe that's the perfect child's device. Did you ever subconsciously hit the top of your mini thinking the power button was the top like the 5? Randy said he did. I never did that. I've been so used to side button now that I never reached to the top for the button. I only had that on one iPhone. Like my first phone ever was the iPhone 5, and that was the only phone I ever had the top button. Every other phone I used since then had the button on the side, so that's why I never did that. I feel like you take out the iPad mini, it's straightforward. iPad is the cheapest model. Air is the mid-tier. Pro is the mega chungus for power users. Yeah, but the mini is in its own demographic, though. Like, I get why it's there, because some people want a smaller tablet. I don't have an iPad mini right now, but when I reviewed the Mini 5, I really, really enjoyed it. I thought that was cool. So I feel like it makes sense because it kind of stands out on its own, right? It's like you have the smallest iPad, you have the mid-size iPad, and you have the bigger iPads. But to have 3 iPads within 0.8 inches of each other, but they all have different screen sizes, iPad Air doesn't really help the situation either, honestly. Like, slightly thicker bezels, and it has Touch ID instead of Face ID. Like, the Mini is in its own category. Okay, you want the small one, you want the medium one, or you want the big one. Makes more sense to me. I think that if there wasn't the iPad Mini and the iPad Pro had Mini LED, then the lineup would make more sense. Yeah, but that's taking away... That's the problem. See, when you have complicated lineups, you typically have options for people, which is also a good thing. I don't want the iPad Mini to die. I don't want it to go away for the sake of simplicity. I think that they can just bring a bit more consistency to the iPad lineup. Like, if all iPads had USB-C, for one, that would simplify it a lot. Or they all had Face ID, kind of like the iPhone lineup now, right? Like, it took a while, but eventually the iPhone lineup, it first came to the iPad Pro in 2018, but then, we look at the iPhone lineup now, and it's pretty much all Face ID, and it's all gesture control, other than the SE, which is still rocking Touch ID. So I wouldn't mind if just the budget iPad, similar to the iPhone lineup now, just the budget iPad has Touch ID, but everything else carries a pretty consistent design scheme. So everything else has Face ID, everything else has USB-C, everything else has Apple Pencil 2 support. So, yeah, iPad Mini, in my opinion, is an option for who wants a smaller form factor but still raw power. The main reason it launched with the Air 3, just like the two brothers, the bigger and the smaller. Yeah, I mean, in regards to power, I mean, that's about as weak as the iPad lineup gets, though. So I don't think it's so much about raw power, because at the time it wasn't super duper fast. I mean, A12 chip was good. It's solid for what you're buying. You're not going to find laptops with performance that good in that price point, but um, I don't think that's the main draw of the Mini is the raw power. I think it's the size. How often do you need to charge your Mini, and when you don't, how long is it by the night? I don't need to charge it that much, to be honest with you. It's been getting me through the day without having to. I haven't been using the MagSafe charge puck to charge my 12 mini at my desk, honestly. I use it normally after work for non-work related things, whether it just be watching YouTube, not making YouTube, and email, finance, tracking, that kind of stuff, texting, of course, taking photos and that kind of thing. I've been using it, and it's getting me through the day fine. So I haven't reached the point yet where it's just like, oh, it's dying on me. I got to be near a charger. But normally ending the day around 30%, 25% when I drop it on MagSafe Duo. I say scrap the regular iPad, thus making the Mini the cheapest option. The Air should be the standard iPad. The budget iPad is just bait, let's be honest. I think they couldn't do that, Surf Jesus, because the budget iPad is the most popular one, and they probably don't make very much money. See, here's an answer to one of the questions earlier. Why don't they lower the price of the iPad Mini to be cheaper than the budget iPad? Here's why. iPad 8 doesn't have very high profit margins, but guess what does? The Smart Keyboard and the Apple Pencil. Those have pretty high margins, and the fact that the budget iPad goes alongside and they always advertise it, you can dock it with the Smart Keyboard and you can get an Apple Pencil with it. People are like, hey, the iPad is so cheap, might as well pick up these accessories while I'm buying it. And that's where most of the profit margin is made. The budget iPad's job is just to widen the iPad OS user base. And when you have more and more people on the iPad OS user base, there's more people that can buy that. How much is it again? Like $120 or something? It's something pretty stupid high for the iPad keyboard accessory. Yeah, I'm just looking at it right now. Like just the advertisement they use with the budget iPad is with the keyboard. And I'm sure when you when you're at the checkout page, they're like, hey, would you consider I'm going to try it right now just to see if they do it. Yep, that's the first thing they do. As soon as you add it to your cart, it's like recommended. Here's what you should get with the iPad. Oh, it's $160. Man, it's more expensive than I remember. I never bought that keyboard. That's why I didn't have it in my memory. But yeah, this is where the money's made, on the budget iPad. And you couldn't really do this on the Mini. iPad Mini does not support external keyboards very well. I've seen them. I've tried a few Bluetooth keyboards with the Mini, and it sucks. You don't want to type on a keyboard that small. It's not enjoyable. This is about as small as you can get comfortably. But that's why the budget iPad exists, guarantee you, is so that they can sell you that $160 keyboard. Let's see. Will you make a longer term review later on for the 12 mini? Yeah, like any iPhone, after I use it for an extended period of time, I'll do updated reviews. And I stand my ground on this. If none of the iPhones next year have 120 hertz, I will not upgrade. I may buy them to review, but I'll return them and I won't switch my SIM over. So I'm gonna stand my ground on that. Even if the Pro Max or Pros, if they're on 60 hertz, I'm not getting them, and I'll just keep the 12 mini another year. That's how much I care, and it's not just about 120 hertz being a big deal. It's mainly about how good the 12 mini is. Thoughts on the Logitech Folio Touch keyboard case for the 11-inch iPad Pro? I'm sure it's fine. I haven't used it myself. I'm sure it's not as good as the Magic Keyboard because you probably have to go into Bluetooth settings or something like that. Oh, this one, $150, has a kickstand. Oh, is this the one that does use the smart connector? Oh, that's nice. Yeah, nothing's wrong with that. I thought you were talking about a different one for the iPad Pro where you have to charge it separately. I've tried a few keyboards like that, and I'm honestly not a fan. There's a few keyboards that are cheaper, way cheaper, and they're Bluetooth, but they don't use the smart connector, so you have to charge them, and that's just such a mess. I hate having to charge the iPad and charge the iPad's keyboard separately. It's just not my thing. If I'm going to use a keyboard with the iPad, I want it to use the smart connector. It does look kind of bulky. I'll give it that. How much is it again? $150? But you get the trackpad, I guess, which the smart keyboard doesn't get you. Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes along with the theme of this is what we're talking about for those who don't know. It kind of fits the theme of the budget iPad, which is it's not that pretty, but it gets the job done. And yeah, it definitely looks kind of hard to take out of the case. So I guess you can detach the keyboard section, but if you're looking for a 2-in-1 and you want a trackpad and a keyboard, yeah. Well, it even has the volume keys. The Magic Keyboard doesn't even have that. You can change the display brightness too. Holy crap. Maybe I should switch to this thing. Yeah, why not? I haven't tried it myself, so this is coming off of a looking it up online and giving you my impressions, but yeah. It looks a little ugly and a little bulky, but so does the Magic Keyboard. And this thing's $350. This thing does not, the material does not age very well. I don't know if you guys can tell. Look at the lighting. Look at the grease and oily stains this thing collects over time. Same with the keys themselves. They collect a lot of little fingerprints and oil smudges that are pretty hard to get off. It's just not physically, it doesn't age that gracefully. You can tell that it's used and old. It functionally works very well, and I still like using the keyboard case with the iPad, but just the material they chose was not a great move. Do you think the next M2 Max will have a redesign or be physically different? So there's rumors that the next MacBook Pros with mini LED displays will have a redesign of some kind. I don't know how drastic of a redesign it'll be. It could just mean slightly thinner bezels and that's it. But there is supposed to be some type of redesign next year. I can't tell you how soon. Most of the leakers are saying second half of 2020, so don't expect them in the spring. But yeah, there's supposed to be some type of redesign with the M2 Max or whatever. What is next for iPad Pro? Should the 12.9-inch have features the 11-inch does not? Ooh. I don't think, there's not really. I mean, when you're working with an iPad that size, I don't really see the point in having exclusives to, with the 12 Pro Max, it's a lot smaller versus the 12 Pro, so you can fit larger camera sensors or larger batteries in it. Because a camera sensor takes up a large portion of the iPhone's overall design, whereas the camera on an iPad Pro takes up a very, very small portion of the entire chassis. So, no, I don't think the 12.9-inch needs exclusive features, but there have been rumors to back up that idea. There's been a lot of claims suggesting that the first iPad Pro to get mini LED next year will be the 12.9-inch, and it won't be ready for the 11-inch. Which is, I think that would tick a lot of people off because there's a lot of people that, I think the 11-inch option is actually more popular. I could be wrong, but I think more people buy the 11-inch iPad Pro. So if they made it an exclusive to the 12.9-inch, it would definitely tick a lot of people off. I wouldn't mind it, though, because that's the one I use. But I've realized now that because of this expensive accessory, similar to Apple Watches, when you pick a certain watch and you have to keep buying watch bands for that size. Now that I've bought this $350 Magic Keyboard case, I kind of have to keep buying iPad Pros of this size. Not that I hate it. I don't mind iPads this big, but when I reviewed the 11-inch iPad Pro, it was kind of comfy. If I continue to not have a MacBook, which sounds like the plan at this point, I would like to have the larger iPad size. If I had a MacBook, then I would probably opt for the 11-inch iPad Pro and not use it with a keyboard case, which is why I think I talked to Nick and Randy about this. I'm not sure if I've talked about it on stream, but in case you want to know Drew Taylosive Tech's future iPad buying plans, because for some reason you guys are watching this crap. Anyway, if the next generation iPad Pros that are coming out next year, if they're still compatible with this Magic Keyboard case, because I know it sucks and I hate the idea of it. But imagine if the next iPad Pro comes out and it's like, it doesn't work. You have to buy a new keyboard case. That's an additional $350 I'm going to have to drop. So in that case, I'll just go for the smaller option, because I've in years prior, I've gone back and forth on iPad Pro sizes a lot of the time because the cases wouldn't fit anyway. So it wasn't like I was missing out on something by going for the bigger size or the smaller size. So for that, if they decide that you can't use your old Magic Keyboard case on the new iPad Pro, then I'll just go for the 11-inch. I'll go for the smaller version, save myself some money, and I won't get the keyboard case for it. I'll just use it touch only. Because when I reviewed the 2020 iPad Pro last March, it was actually really fun to have a more manageable sized iPad. It wouldn't be as good for laptop replacement. Like if I was docking it with a keyboard and a trackpad, it would be pretty crammed, but just using it as a touchscreen is really comfortable. However, this is great for a keyboard because this is the same size keyboard as a MacBook. I compared it to the MacBook Air and they're the same size. So you get a full-size keyboard, pretty decent-sized trackpad, and it makes for a good 2-in-1 laptop and tablet hybrid experience. So if they do decide, on the contrary, if they decide, hey, here's the new iPad Pro, it has mini LED and it has these new camera features and it has the new A14X chip, or maybe they give it the M1 chip, and it supports the Magic Keyboard case, and I can keep using this keyboard case, in that case, there's so many cases. In that case, I would get the larger option. Then I would still opt for the 12.9 inch, and then I'll just pull the iPad Pro off, get the new iPad Pro, dock it with the old case, and call it a day. So basically, I'm willing to drop $1,000 on my next iPad Pro, but I'm not willing to drop much more than that. That's where it's looking right now. Okay, how has Ceramic Shield affected scratches for you in the aluminum sides holding up? When I used the 12, it chipped easily. Really? I have not experienced that, but I'm pretty good with my phones. I don't drop them or scratch them that regularly. I have not noticed any durability issues with the 12 mini. I'm cleaning the fingerprints off it right now just to see if I can spot any. And no issues here. I don't drop my phone hardly ever. When I do drop it, it's usually on like carpet or something. Yeah, actually, I'm just thinking now. The other day, I think it was yesterday, I just dropped my phone off the couch, but we have a rug in there and it landed on the rug, and the couch is not that high off the ground, so it did technically drop, but it was not on a solid surface. And yeah, everything looks great. I'm not getting any chips. The aluminum, in my opinion, looks way better than the stainless steel. Way cleaner, not as fingerprint magnety, if that's a word. I think that's why the Surface Pro doesn't come with a keyboard. If you're upgrading from a prior one, you most likely have a keyboard. Yeah, sure. That's probably why most tablets don't come with a keyboard. Let's see. If that keyboard is the same size as the MacBook keyboards, that means the MacBook Air with shrunken bezels will basically have the same body design as the 12-inch MacBook, but with an extra port. Shrunken bezels, same body design. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if they can go that thin with Magic Keyboard, though. I think part of the reason they were able to achieve the butterfly keys, achieve the thinness of the 12-inch MacBook, was the butterfly keyboard being really thin. And I'm pretty sure the Magic Keyboard takes up more space. They might be able to make it work. I don't know. That's an interesting theory, though. Yusuf says they have a keyboard with the same style of Logitech, one for the iPad Pro. It also thinner and sleeker, but it is better than the Magic Keyboard depending on your preferences. Do you want a docking station like the Magic Keyboard, or the Logitech one, which can flip around and stuff, and you can also take out the keyboard and use it as just a case? Yeah, I don't think I would use it as just a case. I do like I don't know which one you're talking about. I want to find one here. First of all, I'm going to remove this budget iPad from my bag. I don't need that. Let me see if it pops up if I go to checkout. Is this one you can buy in the store? Ooh. No, they're pretty much just recommending Logitech Slim Folio Pro. No, that's not it. There's no cursor. There's an OtterBox. People who get OtterBoxes for their iPad Pros. Ooh, that is a lifestyle choice right there. Aluminum sides feel and look better than stainless for the 12 lineup, in my opinion. I agree with you. It is very much personal preference, but I agree. Logitech Folio Touch. Why am I not seeing it? Fine, I'll search it up. Okay, Logitech Folio keyboard case for iPad Pro. $160. Okay. So definitely cheaper. Oh, and I see you can fold it around. Okay, I'll show you guys so you know what I'm looking at. Sorry, audio listeners. Yeah, it does fold around, which the Magic Keyboard case doesn't do. It does look kind of bulky around the edges. It has to have that big cutout for the Apple Pencil. And then fold it up. Yeah, it's a bit thick. Yeah, it doesn't look bad though. I could see myself recommending this to some people. I don't know about. I think I prefer this to the kickstand though. Might just be a personal preference thing, but having something out the back that has to rest and I don't know. Having it lay flat just makes it look less. I don't know what you call it. Fun. Having this floating design is not. And this looks a lot harder to take out of the case. But I guess the point is you don't have to take it out of the case because you can flip around the keyboard and use it. But I don't know. I like being able to pull it off like this because it's so much lighter and I can feel the aluminum. And having to store the whole keyboard on the back would probably be pretty bulky and heavy. So, yeah. I don't know if it's worth an extra few $100s. There's probably a lot of people that would rather have this. It uses the smart connector, right? As long as it uses the smart connector, then yeah, I would say that's probably worth it for most people. That's way significantly cheaper. I don't know if I would prefer it. Yeah, it is powered by the smart connector. Cool. Yeah, I don't know if I would prefer it myself, but I would definitely recommend it to a lot of people. I like how when I'm scrolling down, I'm looking at the keyboard case on the Apple Store. I scroll down and it's like recommended. Radeon Pro W5500X MPX module for $600. 1 terabyte SSD kit for Mac Pro. I don't own a Mac Pro. And it's listing it with like Magic Keyboard, Apple Pencil, Smart Keyboard Folio for iPad Air. One of these things is not like the other. I don't think these go together. Okay. Anyway, how soon can we expect to see micro LED? Will any devices skip mini and go straight to micro? Probably the Apple Watch, but not soon. It's been rumored for years and it still hasn't formulated into anything. Apple's working with a bunch of different supply chains for display tech, and micro LED has been talked about since 2017, and it still hasn't happened. I wouldn't expect it I wouldn't expect it in 2021, and probably not even 2022. So it's pretty far off. But most of the rumors I've read about micro LED have said that it would come to the watch first. Yeah, I would agree, Yusuf. For the price, it's much cheaper than the Magic Keyboard and probably grants you almost the exact same functionality. I'm just someone who likes, especially when I do my video thumbnails, I like being able to pull the iPad off and just use it caseless and not have a bunch of stuff wrapped around it. But yeah, I do admit the Magic Keyboard probably, yeah, it's kind of overpriced. $350. It's up there. You know, you can buy an iPad for cheaper than that. But, you know, there's certain things that Apple makes that are really expensive, but do something that no one else can do. So that's why people get them. I just don't feel that way about AirPods Max. I'm just like, what does it do that nothing else does? Like, what is it capable of that nothing else is capable of? And maybe I'm just missing the point there. We'll see. Anyway, I've got some more videos to make, guys, so I appreciate you tuning in, but I got to get going, and I appreciate the bits and the Twitch Primes and all that, and I hope you have an excellent rest of your day. Take care, all. Have a good one. Bye-bye.